There is a widespread assumption in modern culture. If science can eventually map every atom, measure every force, and chart every physical process in the universe, then God becomes entirely unnecessary. Under this view, the Christian faith looks like a relic. It is treated as a primitive tool our ancestors used to explain things like thunderstorms and crop failures before we invented telescopes and microscopes. But that assumption rests on a complete philosophical misunderstanding of what science actually is and what it claims to do. Achieving total scientific knowledge wouldn't disprove a creator. It would simply expose the ultimate questions that the scientific method is structurally incapable of answering. Let's run a thought experiment. Fast forward 500 years into the future, to a point where humanity has achieved a perfect, unified scientific understanding of reality. We possess an elegant mathematical unification of quantum mechanics and gravity, alongside an unbroken chart of our evolutionary history. We even possess a perfect map of the human brain, tracking the exact neurological mechanics behind consciousness and our deepest moral intuitions. Assuming this knowledge replaces theology reveals a philosophical error called scientism. Scientism is the belief that science is the only reliable path to knowledge. It confuses methodological naturalism with ontological naturalism. Methodological naturalism is a practical ground rule where researchers seek only physical causes for observable effects while working in a lab. Ontological naturalism is the philosophical belief that nothing exists outside of the physical, material world. Mapping every physical mechanism in a system tells you exactly how the parts interact. It does not logically prove that the system lacks an engineer. To see the difference, imagine walking into a kitchen and asking, "Why is this kettle boiling?" You can give a strictly scientific answer. Thermal energy from the stove is transferring into the water, increasing the kinetic movement of the molecules until they transition from a liquid to a gas. You can also give a personal answer. Someone turned on the stove because they wanted to make a cup of tea for a visiting friend. Both of those answers are entirely true. They simply operate on different levels of reality. Science excels at revealing the mechanical how of the universe. It is entirely silent on the intentional why. When we look back at our theory of everything map, we see massive voids untouched by scientific inquiry. The first boundary is cosmological. Physics describes how nature's laws interact, but cannot explain why there is an elegant mathematical structure underlying reality rather than nothingness. Then there is the fine-tuning puzzle. We can observe the data, but science cannot explain why the fundamental constants of physics, like the mass of an electron, are exquisitely tuned to permit life, instead of leaving a sterile, dead void. Even prominent atheistic physicists, like Martin Rees, acknowledge that this astonishing improbability demands an explanation that goes far beyond pure science. Finally, we hit the moral boundary. A complete neurological science can show us exactly which brain regions fire when we feel moral revulsion, but mapping synapses cannot ground objective truth. If our sense of morality is strictly the blind product of evolutionary survival strategies, then right and wrong are merely biological programming, not genuinely objective realities. The scientific method is the best tool we have for studying the observable world. It lacks the tools to determine what ought to be or why the universe exists. The mindset that science is the only valid form of truth ignores the deep irony. The entire scientific enterprise requires a hidden foundation of faith to even begin its work. Every scientist makes profound, unprovable philosophical assumptions. They assume that the universe operates on consistent laws, and that human cognitive reasoning is trustworthy enough to comprehend them. The author C.S. Lewis pointed out the problem with this. If human minds are merely the accidental byproducts of blind, non-rational physical processes, we have no logical basis to trust that they accurately perceive truth. Without a rational, intentional origin point for reality, the very fact that the scientific method works at all is an unexplainable mystery. The Christian worldview provides the foundational framework that actually justifies scientific discovery. Biblical texts in Genesis and Colossians present a specific premise. A rational creator deliberately designed an orderly universe and imparted humanity with rational minds capable of comprehending it. Pioneers of the scientific revolution used their research to systematically uncover the intricate handiwork of God. Astronomers like Nicholas Copernicus studied the complex movements of the heavens to understand the Creator's design. A perfect scientific map of the universe doesn't make God obsolete. Its mathematical beauty and fine-tuned elegance make a divine creator the most reasonable and awe-inspiring explanation for our existence.